Even so,
And there is the fact that the girl came down here completely without warning, almost immediately after the ruby was stolen.
But I don't...
Could you not obtain a photograph of Miss Lacey and show it to the prince?
That is out of the question, I'm afraid. He's staying as a guest at Sandringham. Do you suspect no one else, Monsieur Poirot?
There is this mysterious sister of Desmond de Wortley. She intrigues me, I must admit. Why does she insist on remaining in her room?
But surely he didn't have to drive the girl all the way down to King's Lacey. She could simply have handed the ruby over to him in London.
Clearly there is something in this business that I do not understand. Surely by now one of these young ladies must have given Lee Wortley the ruby. Then why does he remain? Particularly with Hercule Poirot in the house.
You are hardly a man to pass without notice.
And there is something else. I have discovered that there is an airfield close by. It would provide him with an easy means of escape to the continent. Find out, I beg you, its exact location.
I will see that it's kept under constant surveillance. And now tell me, how are you enjoying your English Christmas?
I settled myself in a quiet corner of the library to await the dinner gong. There was a high back to my chair, and when Bridget and Michael came in, they had no idea that I was sitting there, listening to their every word.
It's going to snow, all right. I bet we have a couple of inches by tomorrow evening.
I've been hoping and praying we might have a white Christmas.
We could build a snowman.
And make it look like Monsieur Poirot. I think there's a big black moustache in the dressing-up box.
I've got a much better idea. Why don't we put on a show for him?
What kind of a show?
We could arrange a murder for him, make him feel at home. A body in the snow with a murderer's footprints.
I'll be the body. It's got to be a girl. A beautiful girl lying lifeless in the snow. And I can wear my red pyjamas.
Red pyjamas won't show bloodstains, and we've got to have bloodstains.
They've got white facings. We can daub the blood on them.
But we'd better not do it tomorrow. I don't think Grandfather would like us to muck up Christmas Day.
Or Boxing Day, then.
Yes, that would be perfect.
It'll give us time to arrange it all and to find some props. I wonder if Grandfather would mind if we borrowed one of his daggers.
Dinner that night was mercifully light, for everyone was fully occupied in completing the preparations for the following day. Christmas presents had been laid out beneath the tree, and a bough of mistletoe hung from the ceiling.
It's all so childish, as if kissing needed encouragement.
Now, who's going to brave the snow and attend midnight mass?
Well, don't look at me, Mrs. Lacey. I can't imagine anything more tedious. Come on, Sarah. Let's see if we can find a few records to dance to, if there are any that aren't positively antique.
Are you going, Em?
No, I've still got the stockings to do. But Bridget and Michael are going, and David and Diana. Are you sure you don't want to go?
Come on, Sarah.
No. That's all right. I'll stay here with Desmond.
Midnight mass? What a thing to call it. Bit popish, if you ask me.
Really, Horace?
Huh? Oh, yes, of course. Oh, yeah, I quite forgot. Yes. Pardonnez-moi, Mr. Poirot.
It does not matter in the least, Colonel.
Oh, Matins is good enough for anybody, I would say. Proper Sunday morning service. Hark the herald angels sing, and all that.
Yes, my dear, that's what we do. But the young ones enjoy the midnight service. I think they find it rather exciting.
Oh, Sarah, that fellow of hers weren't at all excited at the prospect.
Well, there I think you're quite wrong, Horace. Sarah really did want to go, but she didn't want to say so.
Beats me why she cares what he wants. When she's with him, she seems to have no mind of her own. I hope they won't keep that frightful racket going on all night.
It was time to retire. My bedroom was well provided with radiators, and my bed was, of course, a four-poster. A note was lying on the pillow. Don't eat none of the plum pudding. One who wishes you well. Huh. How very unexpected.
A very happy Christmas to us all.
Happy Christmas!
Christmas dinner exceeded all my expectations. It was indeed an experience formidable. The fireplace was ablaze with enormous logs, and in the center of the dining table was a pyramid of holly surmounted by a figure of Father Christmas holding a sprig of mistletoe. As I had been promised, there was oyster soup and turbot and 2 enormous turkeys with chestnut stuffing.
And now it is time for the Christmas pudding.
Oh, my Christmas pudding!
I do hope old Peveril will be able to manage it all right. He's carried in the pudding every year that I can remember, and he regards it as his right. He's well over 80 now, and his hands and knees do shake so. Here he comes, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Oh, but it is on fire.
Of course it is, Monsieur Poirot.
Thank you, Peveril. You can leave the rest to me.
Happy Christmas, Mum.
And a very happy Christmas to you, Peveril.
Happy Christmas! You have to make a wish before the flame dies down. Quick, Monsieur Poirot.
But what was I to do? Suddenly, I remembered the note that had been left on my pillow. Was the pudding poisoned? But my portion could not possibly have been different from everyone else's. I looked around me. Lee Wortley was eating with evident enthusiasm. I could hardly refuse.
Go on, Mr. Poirot. It won't bite you.
I raised a spoonful of pudding to my mouth and tasted it. It was delicious.
Mrs. Ross has certainly excelled herself. Much the best we've ever had.
I was about to eat another mouthful when something fell from my spoon onto my plate.
You've got one of the lucky charms, Monsieur Poirot. May I see?
Of course, mademoiselle.
Oh, it's the bachelor's button. Monsieur Poirot's got the bachelor's button.
It means that you're always going to be a bachelor, Monsieur Poirot.
Ah, my dear young lady, I have been a bachelor for many long years, and it is unlikely that I shall change now.
Confound it, Emmeline. Why on earth did you let Mrs. Ross put glass in the pudding?
Glass? What on earth are you talking about?
There. You see, might have broken a tooth or swallowed the damn thing. Got appendicitis.
But what is it, Horace?
It's a bit of red jewellery or some sort. Could it have come out of a crack?
You permit that I take a look at it, Colonel?
What? Yeah, well, of course, yes. Go ahead.
The light gleamed from the stone's facets as I turned it about. It was the Prince's ruby, the heart of fire. Somewhere around the table a chair was pushed sharply back and then drawn in again, but I could not be certain whose it was.
It's beautiful. Is it real?
Don't be an ass, Bridget. If it was real, it'd be worth thousands and thousands of pounds.
I glanced round the table, but Sarah was examining a charm she had found, and Desmond Lee Wortley was gazing out of the window. I dropped the stone into my pocket. The older members of the family crept upstairs for a greatly needed siesta, but I wanted to find out about that Christmas pudding, and I made my way to the enormous old-fashioned kitchen to pay my compliments to Mrs. Ross.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, sir.
Enjoyed it? But you are a genius, Mrs. Ross. Never have I had such a wonderful meal. And the Christmas pudding, magnifique.
Oh.
Ah, that must have been a homemade recipe, surely, not a bought one.
That's most perceptive of you, sir. For years, Mrs. Lacey has had her puddings delivered from a London store. But this year, somewhat must have gone wrong with order, and by the time she had realised what had happened, it was too late. "Oh, Mrs. Ross," she says, "do you think you could help us out?" Well, this was only just before Christmas, and a good pudding ought to be made weeks before, and then allowed to wait.
So when did you actually make the pudding, Mrs. Ross?
4 days ago, sir. But I still kept to the old custom. Everyone in the house had to have a stir at pudding and make a wish.
And so they all came into your kitchen?
Oh, yes. Master Michael and Miss Bridget and Miss Sarah and Mr. Welling and Miss Diana and Miss Lee Wortley all had a stir and a wish.
Miss Lee Wortley?
Mm-hmm.
And what about her brother, who does not care for the old Christmas customs? Did he stir the pudding?
Oh, no, sir, he wasn't here. He didn't come down till following day.
But I understood that he had driven his sister down here.
Oh, no, sir. She came in a chauffeur-driven car, all wrapped up, she was. Oh. She seemed all right first day or two she was down here, but the moment Mr. Lee Wortley arrived, she took bad again, and she's been confined to her room ever since, with him waiting on her hand and foot. Got up too soon after her operation, I expect.
What kind of girl is she? Does she resemble her brother?
Oh, not as far as I could tell, sir. Her hair was all dark and lifeless looking, and she wore lots of makeup. I suppose she was trying to cover up that she still looked so poorly.
And do you make just the one pudding, Mrs. Ross?
Oh, no, sir. I always make 4. 2 large ones and 2 smaller ones. The other large one I planned to serve on New Year's Day, but as it happened, that was the one we had for Christmas dinner.
Oh, and why was that, Mrs. Ross?
Well, sir, we have a special Christmas mould, a china one with holly and mistletoe on top, and Mrs. Lacey wanted to have Christmas Day pudding boiled in that. But when Annie was getting it down from Chelfint larder, she slipped and dropped it, and it shattered. Well, I couldn't serve that, could I? So we had to have New Year pudding instead.
How very interesting. Now, you will permit me to give you a little acknowledgement of my appreciation?
Oh, well, that's very generous of you, sir. And I wish you a very happy Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
While the younger people played parlour games, I sat quietly in a corner for much of the evening, although I did have a little of the Christmas cake and the cold supper.
A cup of coffee for you, Monsieur Poirot.
It was so uncharacteristic of the sullen and unobliging Desmond to bring me a cup of coffee that I was immediately on my guard. While his attention was distracted, I changed my cup for that of David Welling. It would do him no harm to have a very sound night's sleep.
You're looking very thoughtful, Monsieur Poirot.
It is the Christmas pudding that I consider.
You found it a little heavy, perhaps?
Oh, no, madame. Every mouthful was a positive delight. I do not speak gastronomically. I consider it significant.
It is an essential part of the old Christmas. I hope you sleep well, Monsieur Poirot.
But I did not go to sleep. I retired to bed and waited. It was not until 2 o'clock that the door of my room opened very gently and a figure crept in. But it was not Desmond Lee Wortley. It was a woman. I could not see her face, but I could recognize her perfume. It was the scent that Sarah Lacey had worn that evening. She came up to the bed. I snored very gently, and she seemed satisfied. By the light of a tiny torch, she began to examine the objects on my dressing table, my wallet, my address book, and then she turned her attention to the pockets of my clothes. And then she came back to the bed again. And, to oblige her, I snored a little more. She slid her hand under my pillow and found nothing. And then she left the room, and at long last, I went peacefully to sleep.
Monsieur Poirot! Monsieur Poirot! Monsieur Poirot!
What is it? Come in. Is it the early tea?
No, it's me, Michael.
Oh? So, what is the matter?
I think something rather awful's happened.
Tell me. What is it?
It's Bridget. She's lying outside in the snow. She doesn't move or speak. I think she might be dead. I think somebody's killed her.
Oh, mon pauvre enfant. Lead the way. I will follow.
There, you see? What do you think, Monsieur Poirot?
Oh, mon Dieu. 'Tis like something on the stage.
Yes, it doesn't seem real somehow, does it? And do you see the footprints?
Yes, we must be careful not to disturb the